I wanted to just put down some thoughts on the subject of, well, basically objectification in the sense of being, because I think it's an interesting subject, and there's a lot of stuff talked about objectification, agency, and this sort of stuff, which honestly is is not very well unpacked, I don't think. Yeah, I think there are different sorts of orientation in people, almost instinctive orientation, and some of them arise probably innately or partially innately, and some of them arise through experience and conditioning and all sorts of things. But for some people, some people have a great sense of being objectified, and some people have a sense of being agents, being the subject. Yeah, obviously we all have the sense of being the subject at a certain level, but there is an identification with objectification, which I think is a very important thing, because the experience of objectification can be something that people actually desire and want. And it's something that people can have deeply ingrained in them and really feel, like I said, a great sense of identification with. And I think it's an interesting thing, because you see, you can want to be objectified in ways which are entirely fulfilling for you, or gratifying, put it that way. For instance, to be objectified as something of value or as something useful, or various ways. People gain these senses of objectification and of object value, in a sense, which they crave, which they identify with. Now, for some people, that's almost like a central experience, I think. It's something which they feel very deeply and which is very meaningful for them at whatever level. And it is connected, I think, with the sense of value. The trap that people can fall into is that this identification with this object value, which is a kind of power in a sense, yeah, this objectification with object value and with being objectified, because of this polarity between subject and object, yeah, and agent and acted upon, and this sort of thing, there is almost a misunderstanding and an identification, in a sense, with a kind of non-existence, a lack of agency, and a kind of non-existence, in a way, a sort of death, in a way, a death of being, in a way. And that's a mistake, of course. But what it requires, I think, because it's such a deep thing in people, is for a person to be able to see down through it to that point where they see that being the objectified and having this object value does not mean a loss of self, and has its own selfhood within it. And I think from there a person can grow through these things and find their authentic and genuine agency and sense of selfhood, without, in a sense, betraying this fundamental quality that they feel within themselves. And I think that's a very, very important thing. It's like you see through the error in perception, whereby you think this apparently negative quality of objectification is actually non-existence, but it's not. It's absolutely not. And so you see through that, and you get to be able to grow through this to a sense of agency and selfhood. Yeah. And I actually believe that that's something which people do go through, or at least a considerable section of people go through. And I think it's an important point, an important question, personally. And so I just wanted to make that note of that here.